I don't know. All right. We will call this meeting of the Palmer City Council to order for March 26, 2024 at 6 o'clock. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti.
Here.
Councilmember Cooper.
Present.
Councilmember Best. Councilmember Tudor.
Here.
Mayor Carrington.
Here.
Councilmember Moline.
Here.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Here.
And let the record show that Councilman Best is here. Under the wire, yes. All right, and if everyone could stand, I'll ask Chief of Police to start us off with a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't think we don't have any elected officials or commission members attending that I know of. And we have a proclamation. I think the rabbi is here. Go back. Let's see. Please come forward. So, we have a proclamation recognizing Education and Sharing Day. Whereas the basis for the continuity of any society is education, and in the great city of Palmer, the education of our youth is priority. And whereas to achieve its highest goals, education must not only impart knowledge, but also teach the students how to live, forming and strengthening their moral character to make them better life for themselves as individuals and for society as a whole. And whereas a global spiritual leader, the Rebbe Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, stresses that a moral and ethical education empowers every individual to develop their full potential in making the world a better place. And whereas such an education can nurture the unity of diverse peoples through encouraging increased acts of goodness and kindness, imbued with the awareness that even a single positive act of an individual can change the world and usher in an era of global peace. And whereas April 19th, 2024, which this year corresponds to the 11th day of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, will mark 122 years since the Rebbe's birth. This year begins the celebration of the 75th anniversary of his leadership of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. I think he's being kind. Okay, Chabad is an acronym for the three Hebrew words for wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. The name Lubavitch, we're getting somewhere. Yeah, comes from the city which served as the movement's headquarters for over a century and means the city of love. Of all the ethical values which inform our civilization, none is more important than love. Love of wisdom, love of our fellow man, and love of our Creator. These values, with their roots in the seven Noahide laws, have guided the Chabad Lubavitch movement throughout its history. They are the essence of education at its best, and we should be certain to pass on this precious heritage to all young Americans. And whereas Education and Sharing Day is observed each year on the Rebbe's birthday in recognition of his outstanding and lasting contributions toward the improvement of education, morality, and acts of charity around the world, a day to pause and reflect on our responsibility to ensure our youth have the foundation necessary to lead lives rich in purpose and fulfillment through service and good works. And now, therefore, it is proclaimed by the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Palmer, Friday, April 19, 2024, to be Education and Sharing Day in the City of Palmer, and call upon everyone to work together to create a better, brighter, and more promising future for all. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Palmer to be affixed on the 26th day of March 2024. There you go, sir. Yes, come on. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, all the council people. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. So For this a tremendous honor for us. With this proclamation, Palmer is proudly joining the U.S. presidents since 1978, governors in many states, and hundreds of mayors and hundreds of cities, of designating the Rebbe's birthday, which was always celebrated 4 days before the holiday of Passover, as Education and Sharing Day, in tribute to his outstanding dedication to education. The Rebbe teaches that education in general should not be limited to the acquisition of knowledge or preparation for a career. Instead, educational system must pay more attention, indeed the main attention, to building of character, with emphasis on moral and ethical values. The Rebbe emphasizes that every individual, and in fact every individual action, has an impact on the entire universe, and instilled the hope for a brighter future into the lives of countless people across the globe. Since 1978, the U.S. Congress has designated Education and Sharing Day on the Rebbe's birthday as a time to pause and recognize our responsibility to ensure that our young people have the foundations necessary to lead lives rich in purpose and fulfillment. Education and Sharing Day is about creating conversations. It's about conversations we have with our children around the dinner table, conversations we have with our students in the classroom, and conversations we have day in and day out that can have an impact on the hearts and minds of our young ones. The Rebbe teaches that in truth, every person is an educator, and we must be mindful of our ability to impact the lives of others. People are influenced by the things they do more than the knowledge they are taught. Therefore, beyond the conversations, it's important to promote these ideas through action. In 1974, the Rebbe introduced the charity campaign. This was not a fundraiser for a specific cause or a call to philanthropists to write out big checks. Instead, it was a grassroots campaign to train us all to become givers. The idea is simple. Set aside a box in your home or in your office as a charity box and start off the day by giving a small amount to charity. Children should have their own charity boxes and should be encouraged to give charity every day. This will educate them to have empathy and to care for others. The catch is to do this on a consistent basis. Beyond the value of the accumulated charity money benefiting worthy causes, the hand becomes a giving hand and one becomes a giver as a result. Although April 19th has been set aside as Education and Sharing Day, the theme and message is relevant every day of the year. Even today, let us reflect on our collective obligation and opportunity to enhance the true education of our children, to serve as proper role models, and to take concrete action to bring more goodness and kindness into our world. May God bless your efforts, the City Council, the Mayor, to make a brighter future for everyone in this city and beyond. And may we may the merit of your council work, your crucial work, welcome God's blessings in your personal lives as well, for good health, success, and happiness. And therefore, on that note, I'm going to gift all the members here with a special little box, which, by the way, last week we were in Juneau, and we gifted all the 60 legislators with this box as well. So we'll give each one of you a box together with a card explaining the box, and if with the permission of you guys here, we'll give it to whoever has to the crowd. Is that okay? Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Josh. just to reemphasize, as the rabbi mentioned, this is for you to give money on a routine and on a regular basis, and then you decide where that goes.
Yeah, this is not for any organization, wherever you decide, any charity you would like. Wrong? Sorry. If you ever done it, on my last month, but we have more at home. So reach out to us. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. I already messed up the order of the agenda. I saw the rabbi and his kids standing back there, so I jumped straight to it. We have the approval of the agenda, which includes the minutes from March 12, 2024 regular meeting. What's the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, move to approve.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, you want to call the roll?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Councilmember Moline,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
Okay. So now we're on to reports. City manager's report.
Yes, good evening. Would you pass it? I'm going to pass it down to the mayor. As you know, we were a sponsor of the Arctic Winter Games. We felt it was very beneficial to the city of Palmer and the Mat-Su Borough. But in that, the Arctic Winter Games International Committee is awarding this to our mayor because he was a special sponsor
Wow.
of the Arctic Winter Games, which meant he went to most events.
Okay.
This is Special Commission Ulu, created by the Mule Studios out of the Yukon, with using recycled glass. So that's for you, Mayor. And yeah, Arctic
Yes.
Winter Games, pretty incredible. And yes,
Yes. Well,
where will that
thank
be
you, Madam
displayed, Mayor? Do you have a special spot for that?
Well, nobody usually ever makes it to my office because it's so cold, but
Okay, it will not melt then.
You'll find the
Okay.
spots.
Very good. Okay, so next week I am State of Alaska with Alaska Municipal League. 4 days is hosting Infrastructure Week, where there will be sessions, grants, meet with federal and state agencies. Myself and some of the staff members are going to be heading down there on and off next week. Last meeting, you gave us some money to do some testing at the current library. That process is going onward. I'm making progress to get full count on what it would take and the cost it would take to put the current library back in operation. Our insurance company is anxiously waiting for those numbers. Something that City Council does, been doing for quite a while, it's a community grants where projects come forward, events come forward, City Council awards funding for. So what happened, we had a situation with, I believe it's a young lady, if not met her, Emily Geiger, came to myself kind of at a late hour because we need about 2 months to get through the process. And she did an event, and she has a program called That Thing's Going On to do these events. So didn't come from City Council, came from the mayor and clerk. She got a small donation from them. They put on an ice sculpture over at Palmer Town one Saturday, I think it was like 3 Saturdays ago. About 75 people attended or participated. And they have a connection with the people in Saroma, Japan, just by doing this. So I encourage her to come forward. She's using a very little money, and that's one of the best things about Palmer is you have these grassroots events coming forward, and it's about $1,400 shy of what we normally give for these type of things. So I hope we see more of this. Nice little events that I know City Council wants to encourage, and that is all I have for this evening.
Okay. Not sure. I'll blame the chief or something. All right, is there any questions for the manager from his report from the council? Okay. Next is the mayor's report. I've got a written report here. I took quite a few pages. On March 18th this month, Verna Ewer passed away, and she was a longtime friend of the library, to the point that she did trips to Juneau to harass people to help get money to build the 1984 library. Well, it was built in 83, but 84 is when we moved in. And she was very, I would call her an activist, because she was very active. And I remember her as the lady with the 3 geese, because I lived just up the hill. And she's very loud and active. That was how I would describe her, but that's just my personal opinion. But I wanted to draw attention to someone who'd been a big supporter of the library years ago. Is there any questions for me for my report from the council? Councilman Alcantara.
Mr. Mayor, just once again, I just no real question. Just wanted to thank you for your reports. I mean, I think you do a great job of crystallizing the information, and really appreciate you recognizing Verna, and thanks for this report as always.
I'm not sure how we're getting some static and all that. Okay, I don't know. Nobody else? Okay. For city clerk's report.
I submitted a written report.
There you
I
go.
submitted a written report.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to respond.
Is there any questions for the city clerk from her report? Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Real quick for the city clerk. The applications you receive for the election, that number, does it stay fairly static because of this time of year? I mean, that number of 28 is the people that are really on the ball, and that it'll grow as we get closer.
Right.
Okay, I just recognize the number. I don't think changed from 2 weeks ago, and it's probably not going to change for a few months. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. City attorney's report. Madam Attorney.
Good evening. I just wanted to note that I edited the museum contract, which will be on your agenda this evening, and the draft of the letter for Attorney General Taylor. I also worked on aspects with Title IV. So I am available to questions for those items, but also as those topics arrive this evening. And then a quick note, it's a couple meetings from now, but I will be absent on May 14th. My daughter is graduating from high school, so throwing that out now.
All right. Any questions from the council for the attorney? Okay. Next we have audience participation. So, council meeting rules protect your right to testify and be heard even if others in the room disagree with you. Council meeting rules also ensure that those attending can express their views if they do not interfere with the rights of others to see and hear the proceedings. At all times, order and decorum will be maintained in keeping with the civility and dignity of the legislative process. So we'll open audience participation. I believe there's a sign-in sheet, and 3 minutes per person. Meeting will be shorter if we don't have any audience participation. But
I've been using the library since '84.
can you pull that microphone towards you? Yeah, it's pretty.
Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay. I've been using the library since '84.
Can you start with your name, sir? I'm
Oh,
sorry, I didn't
Bruce
mention
Frank.
that.
Sorry, this is my first meeting.
Oh, you're doing well. I'm not following the rules very well myself, so.
I've been using the library since '84. We need a bigger building. We have for quite a while. I don't always live in Palmer, but even when I've lived closer to the Wasilla Library, I've been using this library, which also means that I shop in town. We need a bigger library.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation?
I think there's a sign up list.
Okay.
I broke hip and stopped crying. Yeah, I remember when this was the library too.
So do I.
Okay, I'm here to to talk about the library. You know, is 20,000 square feet too much or too little for a public library space, and who controls the content? A public library often brings to mind a room full of stacks of books and a librarian who checks them out and shushes you when you're too loud. Understanding that a public library is a keystone public institution in a democratic society and a high-value space within a community can better inform our decision on the issue of size and content of the collection. Today's public libraries are information cafes with more than just books. We're in the digital age, so the pandemic came along and that broadened the reach to the public library space, even to the out of doors. Now we have C-libraries, so. People need to learn how to use essential modern tools at the libraries. It's not books, just books anymore, and magazine collections. Now we can learn how to use a 3D printer, learn how to use the computer. Everybody's got to use the digital age now. We have to upload our patient applications and whatnot, whether we have a computer or not. You can even borrow tools at the library, unlike books. Libraries are uploading videos to YouTube to share information. The Westland Public Library does this beautifully on YouTube. And in the little town of Winthrop, Washington, population 530, you can get a class on computers, how to quilt, how to sew, how to garden. But that takes space, and some of those spaces become what libraries call maker spaces now. When we have speakers for the Garden Art Fair regularly over the last decade or so, we use that public meeting space at the library for our speakers. I can't count on two hands how many meetings I've been in there for hobby groups, different quilters and things like that. We use it all the time. Take language classes there. Many of us have done that with our kids. I really like the motto of the library of the Rockland County, New York Public Library: connecting people, information, and ideas. Information space defines what a library is. It's a multi-generational safe haven. It's a user-trusted space where community engages. People exert their First Amendment right to free speech via uncensored information. Public library is a bastion of that freedom to read, ponder, and explore information. If anything, we need more user-trusted safe havens for connecting people, information, and ideas in our community. Public libraries are spaces that connect, cultivate, and transform our communities. That takes the full 20,000 square feet for the design. Maybe we should have asked for more.
Yeah, we should maybe we should get a copy of the list here. So what do we have? So we had Bruce, and was that Brooke that just spoke? Okay. So is it Saina Bell? Did I say that very wrong?
Saina Bell.
Okay.
Hi. I am Saina Bell. I am the Library Services Coordinator at the Palmer Public Library. So I put together the events and activities for all of our patrons of all ages. Right now I am making a lot of new programs because we had to kind of start fresh when the library roof collapsed. So I just wanted to tell you guys here about what the library does other than books right now. Our longest running program is our baby story times. That's on Tuesdays. Right now they're being held at the Palmer Train Depot. The baby lab sit story time is for little babies ages 0 to 2. We do books. It's a time for parents to bond with their kids and read with them. We do songs and finger plays, and then there's free playtime when babies can socialize and when parents can connect with each other and get support that they really need. We have our preschool story time after that at 11 a.m. That's for older kiddos. We do kind of longer stories, also songs, movement, and then we offer some craft time and, again, free playtime for them to interact with each other and for parents to interact with each other. So lately our numbers have gone up a lot higher. We're regularly seeing 20 to 30 kids at each of those story times, plus their parents. That's like more than 50 people in the room. It's a good thing that we have the depot right now because that would not have fit in the old library's meeting space at all. That's not something that we can do with that space. And there are people that are coming there from all the way from Big Lake and Houston every week to join us. It's something that's definitely community need, even with other libraries in the area. Our newest program is called the Midweek Meetup. That's for school-age kids about 6 to 11, and they have activities every Wednesday afternoon upstairs at our current temporary library. They do STEAM kits, crafts, Legos, all kinds of different activities for them in that after-school time. We have a craft club for adults the last Saturday of the month. That's going to be this Saturday in the afternoon. And that's a bring your own craft for people to work on their own projects and socialize with each other. We do passive programs every month for all ages. That's take-home kits, craft kits, STEAM kits. And then little activities. We do scavenger hunts in the library. Right now we have a March Madness bracket set up to vote on your favorite storybook characters. That's really fun. It's down to Clifford and the Pigeon right now. So I'm also planning our summer reading program. Summer reading programs were designed to minimize summer learning loss for students on the long break from school, and they're actually very effective at doing that, according to studies. Palmer's summer reading program will have reading logs and prizes for children, but also for teens and adults, and some all-ages educational programming. Some of the programs I'm working on right now are a live bird presentation with a red-tailed hawk, a bicycle maintenance workshop, and we always have a big party at the end of the summer to reward everyone. So I'm just here to tell you that our library will be used. We really need a bigger library, more space so that we can expand these programs even more because the demand is there. We have an awesome community that's really engaged and really interested in these programs, and we need space to host them. Right now, we can't even give them space for studying or meeting with each other, let alone space for programming. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I promise we'll use it.
Looks like Frank Bell. We have quite a list here, and I guess we have a 30-minute limit for audience participation, so when we hit 30 minutes, we'll draw a line, and then for the second audience participation, we'll start up again for wherever we left off.
Well, as you said, my name is Frank Bell. I do share a last name with the last presenter. That's not a coincidence. She's my amazing wife that we're all very proud of, but I'm also here to advocate for the same thing. Libraries have been an important part of my life, my entire life. I'm born and raised in Anchorage. I've been living out here for 7 years, but I'll always remember going to the library with my mom when I was young. It's a great time, especially for kids. And then obviously in college and graduate school, the library was a great place to study with other people. It's not always the best to study at home alone or in your dorm room alone. But now, as a parent of 2 young girls, the resources that she just went through are incredibly valuable to us, especially the story times. They're so much fun. The girls absolutely love it. My daughter comes home with a new book every time she goes to the library and is just super excited that we get to read it together. And it's an amazing resource. And as she said, it's about much more than just books. There's all kinds of social programs, internet access for people that don't have it. It's just a safe, free place for people to use, but a lot of those programs do require that space. And I understand, that, saving money or whatever might be a motivation, but to me, especially at a time when our kids are woefully behind when it comes to reading, I think it's something like 80% of third graders in the U.S. are behind with reading levels, which is huge, because if you can't read by that time, you fall behind in everything else. It just doesn't make any sense to me that this would be the place to try to save money. If you're saving money, you're inherently implying that you think it would be better spent somewhere else. And, when I look at what the library does with people, social welfare, mental health, reading, literacy, education, I can't think of a better place to spend that money. So I would agree and also advocate that we do need the bigger library and that it should be built as it's currently planned, at a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Prudence McKinney?
Don't worry, just notes. Not going to read the list. My name is Prudence McKinney, and I am the president of the Friends of the Palmer Public Library. In case there's anyone who doesn't know what that is, we are a 501c3 organization comprising volunteers. We have one job. It's very simple. Our job is to support the Palmer Public Library. Most of that support comes in the form of financial donations, but we also contribute to programming. We stage community events, we collect items that the library is looking for, and we advocate on behalf of the library, which is the capacity in which I'm here this evening for you. I am here to request that you vote to approve the plans for a 20,000 square foot library. Nobody from the Friends of the Library or the library staff or the residents of Palmer or anybody else believes that there should be like a sky's the limit approach to the budget, or, you know, hey, let's blow this thing out of the water and build the whatever. We absolutely support responsible spending, but there's lots of data to support the 20,000 square foot library. That came up, I think it was in 2004, when there was a study done on the older library, which at that time was deemed to be inadequate. It's 20 years later. I keep seeing all these things on Facebook like, well, it's been 20 years, things have changed, we don't need that anymore. Yes, things have changed, but the things that have changed have said, hey, we really need those 20,000 square feet, because in that time, circulation at the library, which is the flow of materials, right? That's books coming in, books going out, things coming from other libraries, right? Okay, that's circulation. That has increased steadily. It didn't slow down. They built the Wasilla Library. It didn't slow down. They've improved other borough libraries. Sutton, Willow have all had library improvements. Circulation at the Palmer Library has steadily risen over that time. It's had absolutely no lapse. Usage, which is foot traffic into the library, also steadily going up. It hasn't changed. All of you guys, as the city council, I'm pretty sure are aware of city population statistics. City of Palmer's pretty small, but its population is creeping up, right? There was a dip in 2020, but it's creeping back up again, and it grows steadily, you know, by a few bodies. Borough population, as I'm also sure you are aware, is continuing to grow. I think I've read in a couple different places that the Mat-Su Borough is the only place in Alaska where population is still growing. Lots of other places it has fallen off. We are still growing. When I moved here in 1993, I think we were around 25,000 people. Now we're at 109,000. And it is worth noting here that 80%, actually a little more than that, of the Palmer Library patrons actually do come from outside the city limits of Palmer. I've also seen things saying that since I personally don't live in Palmer, you know, I don't have the right to advocate for the library, that somehow I'm trying to like foist an economic burden onto the citizens of Palmer. I promise that's not true. My understanding is that the $10 million bond that was voted should be paid for out of income or sales tax money, right? Not property tax money. Please ask my husband how much money I spend in Palmer. I'm not alone. Lots of people come in.
That's your 3 minutes.
That's my 3 minutes. I do have more for you. I will be back with reasons that our patrons love the library next meeting. Thank you.
Heidi, is it Deadman?
Good evening, Council. My name is Heidi Deadman. I'm the Administrative Assistant at the Palmer Public Library, and I would like to talk to you about the meeting room space in the new building. I am in charge of, when we were in the old building, I was the one who scheduled our meeting room spaces, so I have firsthand knowledge about what that entails and what I was telling people, what people were telling me. When we were in the old building, I was redirecting and turning away people several times a week because we didn't have the appropriate spaces or adequate spaces for their needs. We were sending people to the Mat-Su College. We were sending people to the Wasilla Library. We're sending people to the Sutton Library. We're sending people everywhere else except the Palmer Library when they're in Palmer needing a space. We really were lacking in small meeting rooms for job interviews, test proctoring, depositions. We had clients, people asking to have meetings with their clients with disabilities, Zoom meetings, webinars, tutoring, homeschooling. These are all requests for smaller meeting spaces because our large meeting room was always booked with regular renters or library programs going on. It was very difficult for people to squeeze in that we would have any time available in our large meeting room. So, like I said, our most common complaint was the lack of study and meeting spaces in the library and in the valley. If you look at meeting spaces in the valley, they are very expensive and they're harder to get into, and there's really not very many smaller spaces for people who just need an hour or 2 hours to do something where they need a space but they don't want to disturb other people in the library. Currently, our staff is still redirecting people to other spaces or sending them upstairs in our interim library to our big room up there. But when we have library programs up there, we have to ask them to leave that room because we need it for a program. I spoke to the user services librarian in Wasilla and several of the library technicians who deal with patrons on a daily basis to find out how they use their spaces. They have 3 smaller study rooms that hold 8 people each, and their user services librarian told me that those rooms are rarely ever empty. They are open 40 hours a week, and those 3 rooms are full nearly all of those 40 hours a week, from open to close. I asked her if they would do anything differently with that space. She said that if they had 1 or 2 of those 8-room spaces, but they need several 1- and 2-person spaces. So in our current library design, we have an 8-room or an 8-person meeting room, a 6-person meeting room, and 5 of the study rooms that Wasilla wished they had. So
That's your
I'd
time.
like you to consider that information when you're talking about the building. Thank you.
Travis Friesen.
I want to change the subject from libraries to something that I read recently.
Sorry,
about the,
start with your name, and, and it's audience participation, so whatever your choice.
My name is Travis Friesen. I live in Palmer, and I read something recently about Friday Fling, how they're going to limit how much stands they can open in music venues, and this is for the sake of trying to keep the businesses that are already in town from losing revenue from the competition of Friday Fling. I don't believe that. I think that the businesses downtown, everybody will always have them in Palmer year round, but in Friday Fling, you'll only have it in the summer. So I would strongly suggest that they reconsider that decision, because I think it's gonna, make it less attractive. That kind of says a message that we don't want that many businesses trying to compete with other local businesses that already have a brick and mortar building to it, when in reality it's only 1 day out of the week that Friday Fling happens. It's not like they're all week round, 7 days a week. It's just 1 day out of the week. It's not much. So I want them to whoever's in charge of Friday Fling to reconsider that decision. And also furthermore, and I've been going to these meetings for several months now, trying to promote my recycling agenda, and I want to put out an ordinance, and I need someone amongst this panel to give me guidance on how to start an ordinance, because in some ways I don't feel like people are taking me seriously, or maybe I'm being ignored, or maybe I come across as crazy for trying to promote my recycling agenda when in reality I just want a cleaner and healthier town for everyone, and mostly myself too. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Oops. Sierra Dorman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sierra Dorman. Thank you for being here. Thanks for what you do for the City of Palmer. I appreciate it. I'm here to talk about the Palmer Public Library and to encourage you all to approve the current plan put out by Wolf for the full square footage needed. I have been a part of this community most of my life. went to school with Sarah over there, and was a friend of the Palmer Public Library for several years as I was raising my young family. The library is important to our community. You've heard many reasons tonight. I just want to echo those. And I also want to bring attention to the fact that our library is physically in the center of our town. You drive down Main Street and it's the first thing you see. And right now, it's heartbreaking to see it sit there. And I would encourage you all to take action to get the plan moving, because it is sad to see our library just sitting there. So that's what I want to say tonight. I appreciate what you guys do, and let's move forward for the people of Palmer. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Cora Dorman?
Hi, I'm Cora Dorman. I am a sophomore at Colony High School, and I am here to vouch specifically for the youth of Palmer when it comes to the full funding of the public library being rebuilt. I have been a part of the library like my whole life. I can always remember my mom used to be president of the Friends, I think, and yeah, I remember going to those story times and participating in the summer reading programs, and it really just sparked my love of books that I still have now. And yeah, I was at the library a few days before the collapse, and that was my freshman year of high school. And I just want to say that if it does get pushed back till 2027, 2026, I will be a freshman in college. That's almost a full career of high school, almost a full career of elementary school. I mean, kids need that fundamental place of public library where they can read, have social time. I mean, I can't even imagine not having a library like when I was little and in elementary school. So, yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Can't read it. Hunter? Looks like a doctor's signature for the first name.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm a nurse, so that makes sense.
So if you could start with your name, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bree Hunter. There's 3 letters in it, so it gets scribbly. Yes, and the library is a safe third space that we don't have in America anymore. We go to work and we go home. We sit in our car and we scream at traffic. We eat in our car. We yell at our kids because we're too tired from work to even have a thought process anymore. That's all we do anymore. We work. That's all it is. The library is for the community. It's the only place that you can go to that's free. You're not paying a subscription to go to a specific building like Planet Fitness. You're going there, you can ask them anything. They're not going to say, oh, well, what do you need to know that for? They'll say, yeah, here's all our resources. I grew up here. This is my hometown. I graduated from Palmer High. The entire point of the library is to loiter. People want to know what kids are doing there. They're sitting there in a safe space, in a warm space, with trustworthy adults. They're not doing drugs in somebody's basement. They're not sitting in a car at the top of Lazy Mountain. They're safe. They're somewhere being watched. It's the best place that we can have for our community. And I was here 20 years ago when those proposals were going through. The library was small then. There were, 20, 30 people that you could get in there, and then it was like, oh, we got to get back out of here. And she said that the library is central parking, but the middle of the town is library. Meaning you park at the library, you're going to walk somewhere else, you're going to go to downtown, you can then go back to the library, do a program, get in your car and leave. You can't do that at U-Haul, who has a massive building and parking lot. Fred Meyer's cars, huge amounts of space for both of those buildings. Nobody's talking about those sizes of buildings. This is the only building in Palmer that is for the community. I've been through every state. I've visited libraries in every state, single rooms smaller than this, massive ones in Princeton. And the way that you treat the library is the way you treat the community. And if you treat the library like trash, the community turns to trash. There's nowhere for those people to go. The good ones that you want to stay that need those resources, leave. They go where they have those resources. If we don't have them here, who stays? Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Hudgens.
Cindy Hudgens, Palmer. it seems kind of funny for me to talk after all that because they make the library sound like it's really a great place, and libraries are great. I mean, I had my kids at the libraries all the time when they were kids, and they loved reading. Bookstores too. They loved buying books. I question, though, the size of the library. And I know that's what a lot of people brought up, that our old library wasn't large enough, and maybe it wasn't, but do we need 20,000 square feet? Do we need to spend $18 million plus dollars? How many of these people that are advocating for this library actually live in the city limits? How many people could possibly be affected if our taxes here in the city are raised? And okay, so they think that maybe sales tax will pay the $10 million. That's an awful lot of money, $10 million. And we are in a terrible time with the way the economy is and the cost of building materials. It is not a good time to build, in my opinion. There's talk about, well, we don't have a library, and how will I have a library while I'm still a child? Well, there is a place where they're having the library. I mean, yes, it isn't probably ideal. I wonder, is this really a library that's being built, or is it more of a civic center? And I don't know, maybe you want a civic center, but I kind of feel like you're being manipulated by one group of people. And to me, this group of people is the same group that advocate for a lot of things that look good, but aren't necessarily. These are the same people that are the Matsu Moms for social justice. It's all the same group. And it's all the same group of people that are bringing the filth into the library for the little children. I mean, filth that our city attorney won't even let be brought in here for adults to look at because it's porn. But it's okay for the little children. I find it awfully funny that the part of the roof that actually caved in on the library was the children's section. I don't know. It's all connected. And to me, I look at a Bible verse, Mark 9:42. But whosoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. Judgment will happen.
Thank you. Ellen Van, sorry, is it Van Vies? Okay. Start with your name, please.
My name is Ellen Van de Vis. Warm greetings to each of you that are serving public service here. I do not live in Palmer, but my main reason to come to Palmer is to come to the library. I just love the library. I love the librarians. And to add to the safe space thing, the librarians are so dedicated to protect your privacy. They are just the most utmost citizens to help you find what you want and not to put you in an odd position. Every great city has a great library. This is, this 20,000 square feet is still make do according to the needs of all the requests for staff space, all the collections, the meeting spaces, the study rooms, storage requests. So 20,000, yes. Don't get skimpy. This is not the place to get skimpy. I would like to see this as Palmer's pride and joy. Just enshrine this in your love and full budget and get this going. Like one of the first gentlemen said, it's not a place to skimp because the implications are all of our children and their upbringing. So thank you for giving this your full budget, full space, And it's my personal wish that not after 400 years of architecture, we not make a boring rectangle. Make it beautiful, like Palmer is.
Thank you. And at that, I think we've hit our 30 minutes. We still have a couple more people listed here, which we'll get to at our second audience participation, the Janelle and Maggie. And then there's more room to sign up for the next one. Where we want to put this. Okay. Okay, so we'll close audience participation, the first one. And next, there's no public hearings. Action memoranda. Action memorandum number 24-015, authorizing the city manager to purchase and outfit 3 new patrol vehicles in the amount of $228,273.39, and to purchase vehicles under the government and proprietary procurement section of the Palmer Municipal Code 3.21.230 by attaching to the State of Alaska contract. So what's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? Councilman Alcantara, you've got your light on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if the city manager or for the good chief I see there, but I just had a couple questions on these police interceptor utility vehicles. I'm guessing, as a guy who owns 2 Ford Edges, that these are maybe in between a Ford Edge and a Ford Expedition SUV. Which is sort of the first question I had. I have about 2 questions to ask the chief.
Okay, well, the question always is to the manager, and he'll call.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manager. My apologies.
Okay.
You gave him the vote.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Just reminding you of protocol.
Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Yes.
Pull it close to you.
What's that?
Pull the mic close. Yeah. There
Like
you
that?
Go. There you go.
All right. Use my big voice?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. The Explorers are in between the Expedition and maybe the Edge. They are a mid-size SUV, not quite the size of an excursion or an Expedition. We've been using them since, I believe, 2013.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, continue.
With the purchase of these 3, will that give us a fleet of X? I mean, what's the amount of vehicles? And I hope we don't have any that are as old as 2013 at this point, but kind of give me a little breakdown of what we got.
We have all of our old Explorers, and we still use them. Save it be one that was involved in an accident that is no longer on the street. The idea is I need roughly a fleet of about 16, 17 vehicles that we change out about every 5 years. And so what that means for the council is that every 5 years I can come to you and ask for 15 or 16 vehicles all at once, or we can purchase a few every year. And then that would keep us, the idea is that we say we get 3 this year, I take 3 and they become spares because I need a spare, about 4 or 5, somewhere between 3 and 5 spares for people to drive when one gets dinged or when it's in for service. And so if we buy a couple, 3 every year, then we're replacing that fleet slowly over time. And then the ones that are older that were spares can then go to auction and be auctioned off. We can recoup some more money while they still have a decent value in them.
Thank you. Final question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'll let somebody else have a crack at you. So do these vehicles, whether they're the new ones being purchased or any of the vehicles, do they run 18, 20, up to 24 hours a day, or do they follow the officer home after a 8 or 12-hour shift?
They are home cars with the exception of the spares.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I see that it says you're using the State of Alaska purchasing contract. We're buying 3. Is there anybody else in the state that, there's safety in numbers, or is there anybody else in the state that's buying police vehicles so we can get a better price if more vehicles are purchased?
Yes, and that's what we're attached to right now is the state contract pricing because they are the biggest purchaser of vehicles. Right now, that it used to be solely Ford throughout the state. That has changed recently, where some are going to Tahoes, and right now the Tahoes are about $3,000 to $4,000 more a vehicle than the Explorers, and so we made the decision to stick with Explorers. The Explorers, this particular package would be substantially more if we were to say I was to go by myself and buy one privately.
Councilman Cooper?
In the past, memory might be failing me, but there would be state and federal programs that would augment some of the programs or the attributes that we're adding to these police cars. I don't know if they still have those, whether, they're specific to a federal program or a state program, that we would always get extra money from them. Have we looked into that at all?
So we've been able to get grant funding through SHSP, the State Homeland Security, for vehicle radios, and that's saved us roughly about $7,000 per vehicle for the for the radios themselves. As far as the purchasing of the vehicles and the other equipment, I have not located a funding source that could help us with that. But I'm willing to continue to keep looking for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Quick question in regards to the allocation that you have here. I thought I heard you say that you will be rotating some vehicles out. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so with that being said, this is an all-inclusive price, is that correct, with retrofitted necessary equipment, the radios, etc., that you need in order for these to be road ready, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
For everything but the radio, we already have the radios.
You have the radios.
They're
okay.
brand new in box. I believe, purchased
we got
those
them
last year
separately.
under the
Right.
SHSP grant.
Right.
Yes.
Continue.
Thank you. With that being said, is there anything off of the vehicles that will be rotating out that you might expect to be able to utilize and retrofit within these vehicles, or is that not really a thing?
That is a thing, but not this year, and it's because when Ford came out with a new model, nothing fits.
Gotcha.
And then some of the stuff is pretty worn out by the time we get there. One of the things that we had to use for, we rip out of the old vehicle and put in the new vehicle, and we've done that for years and years, is the radar units. Well, the radar units that we have are old, and so we're in the process of changing those out as well. And then some of the other equipment, video equipment, for example. We do reutilize some of them, but it just depends on how old it is.
Mr. Mayor, may I have a second bite?
Yes, Councilman Cooper. Were you done there?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Moline. Okay.
Chief, I noticed you're buying these from Seattle, the Ford place down there. How many bids did we get on these vehicles, and who are they from?
We did not get any bids and I think it's attached in there under the.
Is that because we're going through the Alaska state contract?
The state contracting pricing, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Tudor, you've been patient.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have kind of two questions. One of them is on the video system that is being installed in each. I mean, is that like a dash cam, or is it also is there something else to it? Or I'm just a little curious.
Okay, so yeah, we utilize the GTAC video system, and it is a dash cam. It has a passenger cam, and then in the rear compartment.
Okay.
And then also has a integrated system for the officer body worn cam, so that if I'm in the vehicle and I have my body camera, they'll be synced together. If you're an officer and you have a body camera and you jump in my passenger seat, it will also be linked up to it, so that when we both get out on a call, I activate the lights, both of our cameras will come on, and we'll be able to get it. helps reduce the likelihood of maybe my camera not working or yours, that sort of thing. It doesn't eliminate it 100%, but it's much better than it was when I first started here in the late 90s. So.
Thank you. And I just had a question about the life cycle. I know you mentioned that these 3 new patrol vehicles will kind of replace 3 existing ones that will then kind of be used as backups. After they're done being used as backups, they get sold, or what happens to those the older vehicles? I was just curious.
That is the idea, is that they would either get, if the city can reuse them, a lot of that's going to depend on the shape and condition of them and the needs of the city. So basically there's 3 options. They can be scrapped, the city can reuse them, or we can sell them and recoup some of our money to put towards back in the capital for the purchase of whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think selling them, that'd be a good idea. Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Are we ready to vote? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, next action memorandum number 24-017, authorizing the city manager to spend up to $50,000 on grant writing and architectural services from the capital projects funds in the approved 2024 budget for the new public safety building project. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Right about now, I'd probably be asking if the attorneys reviewed the contract. What's in the packet is more like a request for qualifications. It's not, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it has a lot of detail to me. And since, I don't know, I guess I'm inclined to suggest that we maybe postpone this and get a little more scope of work, shall we say? Does that make sense, Mr. Manager, or?
Whatever your wishes are, Mayor, but what we're attempting to do is there are constant grant opportunities. We hired a professional, are requesting to hire a professional to work on an hourly basis to put together grant applications. At this point in time, I do not know, I've not discussed with the chief, if there is something that that we need to move on quickly. I know for our library request from our senator, that is due on Friday, which is different than that. But I mean, the deadlines come up and we have to run for this. This is one of the priorities for the city council. I guess the only risk would be is if there's something out there we may miss the deadline, but I'm not aware of something we will miss at this point in time.
Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was there other grant writing facilitators that you looked at? What was the requirements or was this just selected off of the lowest cost?
Can I answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Go ahead, Chief.
So, I wound up how this came about is in last fall, I went to a grant writing conference in Anchorage. And I walked in there and I'm going at this meeting and I ran into somebody that I knew. I'm like, what are you doing here? She's like, what are you doing here? And it was Robbie Wichik, who is the CEO of Grants Pro. And prior to this, Chief Cameron and I had sat down and had looked at maybe finding someone that we could bring on either full-time or part-time with the city to write grants. For those of you that have written grants, they can be arduous. Some of the state grants, the SHSP grant, I've had the opportunity to write those, and to apply for them and stuff, and they're not as difficult as some of the other federal grants. Let's put it that way. So grants can get pretty intricate, and they can require quite a bit of work and quite a bit of man hours. Anyway, I was talking with Robbie, and she said that she had a team. It's the first time that I've ever heard of or known of a grant writing team. I'm sure they're around. It's hard to find. If you get on here and Google, you wind up with all kinds of stuff that's, people trying to sell you a widget and not really help you out with your project. So I reached out to her and see if she would put together, I guess, what would you call it, a cost, and she did by the hour. She's got a team of about 12 people that work for her, and the price seemed to be pretty good at $60 an hour. I said, well, okay, what does that mean? A lot of the grants that she would be applying for do have deadlines. There's one that is about a $2 million grant that would allow us to look at land, feasibility studies, pay for engineering studies, that sort of thing. There is a deadline for that that's coming up in April. And then the application closes and it won't be open again until next year. There's another grant, which is the Department of Ag grant, I believe is open for an extended period of time, but awards are granted in the fall. So the sooner the application is in, the better. The estimate that she gave for the first one was about 3 weeks, maybe as little as 2. The estimate that she gave for the Department of Ag, which is a grant that she has helped the city of Yakutat get and other places get, she has experience, and I think that's attached in there in the packet. Anyway, she said that would take about 160 man hours. So if she has one person working on it, it takes about 4 weeks. And it's not like she could have like 10 people working on it and all of a sudden they get it done in 16 hours. Yeah, there's things that you have to do, and then there's steps. So that kind of spreads it out as well. I don't know if that helps shed some light on it.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. So if I can kind of consolidate this information, it sounds as though this particular group, which is Grants Pro, has experience with municipal seeking funding for municipal situations such as ours, who might be taking on the endeavor at looking at public safety, whether it be fire department, access to additional services or buildings or anything that you're trying to develop, and that's what I hear you're saying, and kind of what you had included in the packet.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I specifically asked her, and when she volunteered it, she's like, "Yeah, I've helped other municipalities around the state," and shared with me some of her projects.
Councilman Cooper?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you. I think we need some more detailed information, but I'd like the city manager, if you would, to elucidate a little bit on, I understand there are already 2 city employees that have been sent to a grant writing seminar, or some, one in Public Works and another one, and why don't we use the 2 people that are already trained in grant writing?
Mr. Manager.
So we are doing what we can. That is true. One is my assistant, who is works with the CAPSIS for the state, also works for federal grants. We've been really successful in the past. We've got $15 million for the clarifier projects recently. And what the police department has is a police department, I think a fire department, regularly come in for these grant awards that you readily accept. This is outside that realm of their availability to do it. Plus, too, they are a lot of these are federal grants, have different requirements. So when this was brought to me by the 2 chiefs, they talked about a full-time person, part-time person. I didn't think financially that was our best move. And so we sought this out. I also am very familiar with Robbie and her success. I just think this is a good recommendation to go if this is your priority to move forward on a public safety building. Grants come. You know, one of the things that we've been fortunate through the federal grants is I think it's a very short window and it's going to close pretty quick. So we want to get in while the getting's good. That's my view on that. Could staff do it? I don't know. Other than the basic grants that the police department does, that they have somebody on staff who has the capability of doing this. But if you'd like us to explore that, we will. It's just going to take a little time to come back with that, and we may miss some opportunities.
Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, just so I understand, because I am a little put back about this, just because I like the transparency of having this stuff go out for RFP and having multiple companies look at this. I just don't like that we're saying, oh, just use this one company because they're there. Is there? And it sounds like there's definitely an urgency here because there's some grants that are closing. What is return on investment here for this? I mean, what are you looking at as far as what grants particularly are you going after, and what would the award amount be? I know you mentioned I think it was $2 million.
Yeah. So if I can address that.
Yeah.
It's 60 hours. It's probably maybe $5,000-$6,000 investment is a swag for a $2 million grant. There's no guarantee we're going to get the grants. We have been pretty successful. We are competing. I know I'm working in discussions with Wasilla to do an EDA grant to get $2.5 million more for a study for the water interconnect. They are doing that. They are taking on that responsibility, but they have room. They have $10 million, and they have close to 200 grant requests. They'll be able to fund 10 of those. So it just depends on the situation. If you're saying spend $6,000 or $10,000 or $12,000 and we expect to get those grants, I would say then don't do it. They're competitive. We've been successful, but there's no guarantee with those. However, we talked about something that we want to build a facility in here. We are seeking grant funding for that because we don't want to spend our own money. I'm trying not to spend our own money.
So just to confirm, so this particular request is for the $2.5 million for the planning process?
So generally it's wide open. This is the $50,000 you gave to study the first step for the public safety facility. Honestly, I think $50,000 is way too large. It's not going to be even close to that. It would be not this specific grant, although it could be a few of them. A lot of times you get the work done and it can apply to the next opportunity since we're looking at the same thing. So it'll be a limited time investment once you do it 2 or 3 times. I think we're happy to come back, but I would like the chief to weigh in. Are we going to miss an opportunity that's important to him?
So, yeah, I certainly don't have a problem coming back. We would miss an opportunity on a $2 million grant that may help us be able to procure land for a new public safety building. Miss an opportunity to apply for a grant that may provide, if we were awarded, may help provide for that funding. That does close in April, and it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to apply, and what do we got left in March? Not a lot of time. So I do apologize. I wish I'd have had the forethought to get this to you sooner. It kind of, I guess time bunched up on us.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Anzalati.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring up, I'm not sure if this is a conflict of interest, actually, but I understand the priority of wanting to keep the grant writing within the city and to save money, be careful with the budget. But if we end up going this route, I know Robbie personally, and I can vouch for her character and her passion about what she does and her experience. So if that is a conflict of interest, you can let me know.
Well, let's pause here. Madam Attorney, I don't see that as a conflict.
Are
but
you related to her in any way? Is your new husband related to her in any way? Is she paying you anything? No, you're fine.
All right, so
She give you coffee.
I give her coffee, but I won't give her a discount.
all right, Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely hear the trepidation about this proposal, but I would say that state fiscal year closes June 30th. Legislative session is going to end sometime in early May. Federal fiscal year closes September 30th. This $50,000 in the budget is basically authorizing the city manager. If it's a 160-hour grant project, there's $9,600 that's going to be spent. 80-hour grant project, there's $4,800. I think we need a new public safety building. The chief did a great job showing us the 40-plus-year-old building and what's wrong with it.
And great.
I personally would rather not delay it for 2 more weeks, but I do hear my fellow colleagues here thinking they may need to, but I would hope that we could approve this tonight.
And we still haven't got to the point that bugs me, but Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have issues with the process, as we've all heard. Is there a way to split the baby? I mean, because really we have 2 grant opportunities that you were discussing. We have one that is in the near future, the other one has a little bit more time lagging behind it. If we were to say we would fund the one that is due in the short term, what would that cost be? Could we knock it down to $15,000? And then
It would be, according to her estimate, it would be 3 weeks, 120 hours. At the most, at $60 an hour, $7,200. So we could go forward with that, and I could bring something back before council.
Councilman Best.
If we're ready for any kind of motion, I would suggest
Not
that.
yet, but okay.
Okay. Well,
I haven't talked.
then I will say that I'm leaning towards paring this down to $10,000 to go after the one grant that is in the near term, and that gives us kind of a test window of the services. Then have you come back with or maybe we put out for RFP and to open up for other agencies to also then to look at a future service contract where we would be able to have somebody that would be able to go after grants for us later on, and that might be able to be a way to kind of test the system, see how they perform, and also then open it up for others to bid on services towards the city of Palmer.
Okay, so my heartburn with this one is it mentions architectural services a couple times. We're having a lot of interest in our library project and about architecture, so that bugs me, not having a scope or anything laid out. So I guess I'm willing to go forward with it if we say, but it's only for grant writing, not for architectural services, without having a better scope, et cetera. Does that make sense, Mr. Manager?
Absolutely. Maybe it's written wonky. I believe we would apply for a grant for potentially using the money for architectural services and design, not paying an architect.
Yeah, I'm just
previous for the grant.
I'm just a little hesitant, shall we say?
Yes, we
with kind of a blanket.
Myself and the chief wholeheartedly endorse what you just said.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So there's my 2 cents on it. So now we're discussing an amendment. What? I'm not sure. What? It's up to the council. What? Who wants to propose something? Yes, Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like there has been enough included in the packet to warrant us moving forward with this and just going to a vote. There is extensive information in the packet about Grants Pro, what they're capable of performing, and I do feel like it's a reasonable expectation. It allows them to have some wiggle room to work through the process and maybe perhaps get one or two more opportunities out of it.
And I'm presuming this would be it'd be billable, so as they're doing work, they'll be billing us for the hours, and it would be documented that way. What does the council think? Councilman Best.
Just because of process, we're kind of being put, so to speak, under the gun again for timeliness, and so we're having to expedite something where our normal process is to put out for RFP, to open it up in a public process, to allow other businesses the opportunity to present what they might have. So that's where my heartache comes in this situation. So I would like to make an amendment of up to $12,000 for the near-term situation, and then ask the chief to bring back a more of a service agreement for later on the one that had a little more lag time.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, discussion. Sorry, Councilwoman Moline.
So
There's one person over here. I remember to swing over this way.
And thank you for that. I guess my question would be to you: is 12,000 enough? Is that enough
It's enough to apply for one grant.
to apply for one? So
Okay. Councilman Alcantara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would propose that if we're truly going to split the baby, why don't we make this thing a $25,000 expenditure and let 25 grand go back into the kitty, and that way we have the ability to, if one of them comes in at 9,600 and one at 7,200, we can cover them both. And I just think 25,000 is cleaner, simpler, and I think it's a better figure for tonight.
Mr. Manager?
So here's it, and I appreciate discussion, appreciate this. One thing I'm cautious about is I'm not going to see the conclusion of this grant, because I like to stand up and say, hey, I will make sure it works. I have confidence in the chief. I think the lower number is fine, and then we can, the person sitting in this seat can report back how great we did on this to give you confidence to move forward on the next one. Or at least we applied for this. This is how much time it took. And even maybe have one of the grant writers, although it costs us a little bit, come and explain our process if you're concerned about that as city council. So I appreciate that. But let's go ahead and get this one under our belt, report back to you, and then you can judge moving forward on where we go with our public safety building and grant writing.
Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to state that I'm not against us going forward with the first portion of this and then open it up for RFP as soon as we can. I mean, put it out there right away so it's out on the street for the other services, the continuation on. So, I mean, that I don't want to hold that up until September kind of thing as well. So if this is an opportunity for us to go ahead and kick off the one grant and then put out for RFP so that other businesses have the opportunity, and then we're ready to rock and roll either way. I don't necessarily need to utilize it as to check the services of the individual company for the next portion. That's just something for us to have it as, whether or not they're a good company to go with later on.
So we've had an amendment for 12,000 total, and I didn't hear a motion and or a second for the other idea. So are we ready to vote on the amendment then? Okay, Madam Clerk, I guess basically the amendment is changing the amount to 12,000.
Correct.
Okay. If you could call a roll for the amendment, please.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay, the amendment passes. So next we're to the main motion. Is there any more discussion? We've done fairly well discussing this. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please, for the amended motion.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Unanimous?
All right, that finishes action memorandum, unfinished business. Do we want to take a break? So maybe take a 7-minute break here. Huh? You're freezing and I'm hot. It's 7:34 according to the clock. We're back to unfinished business. So this is already on the floor, right? Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay. All right, action memorandum number 24-016, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a 3-year contract with the Palmer Museum of History and Art for the custodial care and curation of the City of Palmer's museum artifacts in the amount of $55,400 to reflect 2024 payment. And there's a motion on the floor. So this is back on the floor. Where are we at? We've got a motion and a second. So is there discussion? Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Pointed it right at me, so it was not as visual. Mr. Best.
Yeah, so this contract had been brought to us in kind of another one of those expedited timeframes again. And my understanding is this is a continuation of a continuation contract where we're at probably 7 years-ish since the original RFP went out for services, if memory serves me right. And when we had discussed it a year ago, I thought that it was council's desire to finish off the contract, have some of the contract language revisited, and then put out for RFP for other groups to also bid to see if there was other folks to do this, offer these services within the community. And then I see a contract come before us that has 3 years on it, and I'm not interested in that. I would like to potentially, I will be putting through a motion to put it down to a 1-year contract and then have an RFP come up within the next 6 months and then go out, because I know that there are other entities out there that have made comments that they would be interested in bidding on these services. So that would be my intent, and I'm interested to hear the rest of the council's position on that.
Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with that. I think that it's, it's appropriate to put it out for RFP and see what we get.
Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question for the city attorney. I know that there are separate contracts, but it feels like this contract and the visitors center contract are a little bit intertwined. And do you see any issues with us doing that? Bringing this forth as a 1-year contract as opposed to 3?
Madam Attorney.
Yes, I can understand how they seem intertwined, particularly with the physical building parts, but the scope of the responsibilities within this contract are defined as the services, as opposed to the VIC is really staffing and maintaining the building. So those are kind of the defining separations, so legally there doesn't seem to be a conflict with an RFP.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for my 2 cents worth. I feel that the Palmer Museum of History and Art's done a pretty good job lately of coming to council, explaining situations that have occurred. To me, this is a small-scale contract, and I think it was well-written, and I would just advocate for let's move forward to this 3-year contract. We got minimal inflationary increases in the second and third year. And, there's a reason why the windshield is so big and the rearview mirror is so small. Let's not go back to mistakes that might have been made 3 or 4 years ago. Let's move forward with what's been presented to us, and I would say move on.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councilman Alcantara. I'm not in favor of 1-year contracts. It makes it difficult to continue to do that. In good faith, we've had 5-year contracts with these people before, and typically with a renewal contract of 5 more years. So, this one is a 3-year, and I think that that's the way we should go. They've done a pretty good job. They've been working now without any paid staff at all, and so they've kind of saved a little bit of money. But like the member to my right mentioned that it's only $55,000. It's pretty picayune compared to some of the other things that we're doing. I think we need to move forward.
Mr. Manager, if I understand right, I believe staff may have done some informal inquiries about, if there was other groups that were interested and didn't seem to get any
That is
interest
correct.
in that.
There was nothing formal. There was just discussions, and from us, we were not able to gather any real interest in doing that work.
Okay. And I can appreciate that, but I also, I get frustrated when we don't have much of a paper trail that says we did something, so I guess I wouldn't mind an actual process. So, Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, kind of elaborating on that, would it be possible for us to, if we were to approve this contract, have it built in where it automatically goes to RFP at the continuations contract, or is that something? So I'm sure that was an option.
I think the matter is just the timing. Madam Attorney, why don't you weigh in?
So you're asking if we change the terms from the timing of the term to a 1-year contract, or maintain it at the 3 with a contingency of an RFP that might be a lower bid?
Will this be more of a city policy than something in the contract? But, if we were to keep it at 3, are we able, as a city policy, to say this needs to go at RFP every so many years? Because it's like Councilman Best said, they've had this contract for a good number of years, and if we do have groups looking to bid on this, I don't want to lock people out, but I also don't want to put the Palmer Museum of History and Art in a bad position. So I was thinking one of the compromise would be if it automatically, this as a city policy, went out to RFP after so many renewals or something like that.
I think that's more of an administrative, but legally, there's certainly no issue with that. I mean, it would also be possible to, if an RFP came in at a lower than the 55,000, there might be something we could add to this contract in terms of terms. The other issue, if you do change just looking at the terms of the contract, if you do change the term from 1 to 3 years, there was a negotiated by Mr. Hansen, 2.5 annual inflation increase applicable after year 1. If you're going to change it from 1 to 3, I would suggest adding that beginning immediately to the total. If you're going to just make it to 1. So if Councilmember Best suggested altering this so the term would be 1 year instead of 3 years. In the definitions and the payment plan, there is a 2.5% built-in annual inflation price. So if you're going to eliminate the remaining 2 years, you may want to consider adding that, since it was already elemented into the first year, just as a consideration from the legal terminology.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. To the attorney, so if we change this contract, it seems to me that we have to go back then to the other party and get approval from that part of the contract. Is that not correct?
Well, traditionally in contract law, the contract is defined as a meeting of the minds. So, you could offer them and say take it or leave it, but you usually go back and forth, and certainly both parties have to be in agreement before it's signed.
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, that kind of solidifies more my point about we need to move forward with this, because what's happening is that it'll go back and forth, who knows how many times we'll keep having more changes. So, again, I think we should vote on this, move forward.
Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just like the issue that I had with the contract for the grant writing position, there again, we're being put behind the gun and being told that we have to move on something because of timeliness of being brought before this body. So that's why I would eagerly suggest that we go to a 1-year contract, because it was a continued contract of at a minimum of 7 years, potentially, actually, I think it might be closer to 9 years that it has gone out to RFP. There was other groups that was inquiring over a year ago about it going out to RFP, and that's when council had suggested that we were going to go out to RFP in this interim. But now here we are again behind the gun and being told that we have to move quickly, or we're going to be in conflict. And so I will put forward the amendment to make it a 1-year contract with a 2.5% increase for inflation, and put it to a vote.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Does everyone follow the amendment to make it a 1 year? And but adding in the 2.5% into this 1 year. Okay. Any other questions or clarifications from anyone? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for the amendment.
Councilmember Alcantara,
No.
Councilmember Moline,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
No.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti.
Yes.
5-2.
5-2 passes. Okay. Is there any more comments or questions on the main motion? Councilman Cooper.
Yeah, so this begets a question again of what kind of time frame are we talking about now that we have to send it back to the Arts Council and get kind of approval to come back and back and forth. So now are we delaying this process again?
Well, I would describe this as fairly messy in that I believe we authorized paying them the January payment already without a contract. So this is a not very good way to negotiate, shall we say. It should have been handled in contract negotiations, but we'll. So is there any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for the amended motion
Of approval.
of approval.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
No.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti,
Yes.
Councilmember Moline,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington.
Yes.
6-1.
Okay, and now to simpler things. New business, approval of a letter to the Attorney General from the City of Palmer. This was after our presentation, I think it was, from the attorney. I forget how many pages, but one of the ideas was to ask for clarification from the Attorney General, because the Attorney General issued 3 different letters, I think it was, kind of public press releases. And so one of the ideas was we've gone back, we've looked at our own policy and asked for clarification. So that's essentially what this letter is for.
And I could elaborate on that briefly.
Madam Attorney, if you want to summarize.
Yes, so in the November 16th letter specifically to Alaska Schools and Public Libraries by Attorney General Taylor, he gently tasks municipalities and schools to be aware of the current 3 different criminal code. We're solely talking about a criminal determination in this letter. And our response is, yes, we have looked at the processes within the City of Palmer. That has aroused some specific questions that we would like further clarification on. He did specifically list in the letter that if you had any questions to reach out to the Department of Law. The Attorney General is the head in the state of Alaska. The examples that you saw in the presentation I gave, there were different jurisdictions around the United States that had either requested their local prosecution's office or the sheriff's office. In the state of Alaska, that's our Department of Law. Department of Law makes all determinations based upon the staffing they have for what they will prosecute and when, and if what makes a good case. So asking for guidance from the Department of Law is really par of the course. This is a very common thing. You'll note that the Attorney General has opinions, hundreds of opinions that attorneys and criminal law, as well as all the prosecuting attorneys, will seek guidance on. So what we're specifically asking is whether or not, according to Alaska's criminal code, does the list of 56 books, does that material, is that defined as legally obscene? And if so, then we would like him to guide us and have a definition of that from our Department of Law.
So is there any questions or comments from the council? Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say this is an excellent idea. Thank you.
Councilman Alcantara.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this request for legal opinion, after the 4 pages, is it signed by the mayor? Who signs this document?
My request would be that it was signed on behalf of the mayor and the Palmer City Council, because it has to do with such a position of magnitude. There also, having spoken with other attorneys in different communities, there is interest, and I think there may be that other cities would like to sign on, at which point would say like Palmer City and list out the other cities as well. So that would be my hope.
Any other comments or questions? So we don't really have a motion at this point. We need a motion to approve this.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the letter to the Attorney General from the City of Palmer as presented in our packet. Any more discussion, comments, questions? All right. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay. Next is audience participation. Could someone grab that list from us? I believe, I thought I wrote it down. I think Janelle, excuse me. Janelle Gagnon, I think, is the next one. We'll see how many we can get through in this 30 minutes. Is it? Yeah, pull it close. It's not sensitive.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Janelle Gagnon, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the City Council, Palmer City Council, and just throw in my support for the full 20,000 square feet for the Palmer Public Library. Just for some context of where I'm coming from, I am an ardent fan of libraries. I grew up using libraries. I went to the library often with my own children. I have a master's degree in educational library, and I was the past president of the Mat-Su Library Board, and I'm the past president of the Friends of the Palmer Public Library. And fun fact, I got married in a library. So I love libraries. And it's been really, honestly, just a beautiful thing to be here. I haven't been in this room in a long time, and I just want to first say that it's really nice to be back in here and see civil discourse, to hear people express their opinions, and done so in a polite, calm way, even when there's dissenting views. And part of being able to execute that way is having a good fund of knowledge about the world around you, and that's part of why I love libraries so much. And I think that there's a real, almost like a poetry about what's happening in here tonight. And I don't think that I could say anything better than what's been said tonight. I loved the different perspectives that have been given about why the library is so important. I would agree, like, don't skimp here. I really don't think you're going to be disappointed. The borough is the only place in Alaska that's continuing to grow. We know from data that even with the Wasilla Public Library having been built, the Palmer Public Library just continued to be busier and patronized more as the population grew. So I think that, in closing, the only other perspective that I would like to add is my current job is as Community Outreach Manager for CCS Early Learning Head Start programs. And if you know anything about Head Start, we service the most vulnerable population of children in the Mat-Su, or in the Mat-Su borough. And I think that you all are well acquainted with the fact that it's not just Palmer, it's not just the borough, but statewide we have a lot of social issues that we have to contend with. Some of the more serious ones being the highest rate of teen suicide, sexual assault, domestic violence. And I think that I'll just say that connection is so important to addressing those issues and mitigating those issues. And I think the library does an excellent job of pulling the community together. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie Avi?
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and it's Maggie Obi. Just
sorry.
think of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That'll give you a
Okay.
help. I'm up here tonight to talk in support of the funding the Public Palmer Library in full, the plan that was proposed by Wolf. I was already under the impression that you guys had already approved it. I guess silly me. And then I was flabbergasted when I found out that you hadn't done it. So I guess in my opinion, as just a member of the community, it kind of feels like you're stalling a bit and it's taking longer than it should. Me and my daughter go to the Palmer Public Library once a week, and it is grossly inadequate. So for anyone to say, oh, you can just go to the current library, it is really, really kind of sad, and we really need something different. And we're trying to make the best. I was so just excited to hear from the sophomore in high school that came up and spoke and said that she grew up in a library and grew up going to story time and doing all these things that I am doing now with my almost 5-year-old daughter. That's very inspiring to me as a mom to think like, okay, my daughter could be as cool as her someday. So I hope. So prior to the roof collapse, the building was too small. I went to story times with my daughter there, and the room was packed. I don't know if any of you attend any of the library events, but I went to the library story time a couple weeks ago, and it was at the fire station, and that room was packed. And that is a very large space. That is probably twice as big as the meeting room that was in the old library. So it's very clear to me that we need a larger space that we do not currently have. In its time. So I heard an argument that someone was saying that, oh, why do we need a larger library in Palmer? Why can't they just go to the Wasilla Library? And it just made me laugh out loud because I was like, well, why do we have a Fred Meyers? Can't we just go to Wasilla Fred Meyers? Why do we have a police station? Can't we just call the Wasilla Police Station? And it made me start thinking about our slogan for our town that's right there on that wall behind you. And it says, Palmer is Alaska at its best. And I am proposing a new slogan based on people's opinions that why don't we just go to a different city for our services. And my new slogan is Palmer, Alaska at its, oh, never mind, just go to Wasilla.
Jackie Goforth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jackie Goforth. Thank you so much for the vote on the museum. I'm going to quote someone. The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. That's from George Orwell, the man who wrote 1984. The library situation. I love libraries, I already have. I love books, I already have. I've written 58 of them that have been published. I've written probably 20 that will never see the light of day. I grew up in libraries myself. The problem with this, in my opinion, is it's just a great big ugly square. Alaska at its best, and how charming and wonderful the city is, that building is not aesthetically pleasing. It has a very large carbon footprint. If you have any idea what kind of heat loss goes up into a big foyer with a 2-story thing, you would know it has a big carbon footprint. It's going to cost money to heat. The solar panels are not going to be any good in the winter. And if you have seen what happened in Texas with their hailstorm, they just knocked out 10,000 acres of solar panels. Solar panels are not the be-all and end-all of everything either. I think that space, yes, we may need space, but I don't think we need to enclose a teen section. If you enclose a teen section with some of these books in, that's not a good idea. And has anybody seen what's happening with the homeless population and the problem over at the Kozlowski building? You know, if you have something like that, it's going to be a homeless mecca, especially with a coffee shop. Palmer's already dealing with that. I think we really need to build something that meets the needs of all of the citizens, not just the left side, not just the ones that were running the nonprofits that did Friends of the Library and did the museum. All of the nonprofits are left-leaning. In fact, the American Library Association has lost
12 states so far because all they do is one side. They don't listen to everybody. They're not nonpartisan anymore. They're very partisan. Yes, we need a library. Yes, we need something that's beautiful. We need something that looks beautiful and fits in at Palmer. This is Alaska at its best, not Alaska with an Anchorage hub. Please, please, let's take a look at what we're doing. If we need 20,000 square feet, so it makes them look like a fantastic 20,000 square feet. Not just a big square with colored lights that you can change into a rainbow hue. Because I'm looking for that one too. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, excuse me, Travis, thanks. Karen Lewis.
Yes, hello, Mr. Mayor and City Council and everybody.
Go ahead and start with your name, even
My
though
name
I
is
just
Karen
said your
Lewis.
name. I know.
Thank you. I think I like the idea of a new library. I like the idea of a beautiful library. Libraries are great. Libraries are needed. What isn't needed are the obscene books. So when we get a nice, beautiful, brand new library, there better not be any filth in it. That's all I have to say about that. We were at a Wasilla City Council meeting back in November 27th, 2023. And one of the, Councilmember Johnson said this, and I'm going to repeat it because it was very good. It said, he was talking to Zane, the Wasilla librarian there. He said, this book right here, The Real Anthony Fauci, Robert F. Kennedy is currently a candidate for president. It's on the bestseller list. It's not in our library. One copy in an obscure location in Alaska. His book, Letter to the Liberals, isn't covered in any of our Alaska libraries yet. Again, it's on the bestseller list. He goes on to say, Robert P. George, he's one of the predominant professors of law at Princeton University. Him and several liberal professors have written a whole series of books, Conscience and Enemies, Dogmas of Liberal Secularism, Ideals and Institutions. There isn't any books in our library at all by him. Then there's Dr. Miriam Grossman. She's one of the premier MDs, PhDs in child psychology. Her book, Lost in Transnation, is currently on the bestseller list. It is one of the premier books talking about what is going on in our society today. There is one copy of that book written within the system. Wow, we're doing pretty good here, Alaska. We've got one book here that is conservative in nature. Then there is Dr. Thomas Sowell. He is a PhD, Harvard, Princeton University at Chicago. He has a whole smear of books, some selling rather well. Let's go to the next one, Justice Clarence Thomas. Currently, he's really being hit hard with a lot of books. In fact, there are about 6 or 7 books defaming him in the Alaska Library Association. We don't have one book written by him at all, not one. And yet he's on the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, we in Alaska here, especially in Wasilla, we're a fairly conservative bunch. I think within about 5 miles of here, I can go to 3 very conservative evangelical churches that have a really wide following. A lot of people in those churches are going to know this next gentleman, Dr. Voddie Baucham. He's a professor of theology. He grew up as a black man in the South, in South LA, went to Birmingham, went on to get 2 PhDs, and now he has a very popular book called Fault Lines, Social Justice or something like that. Anyway, my point is here, we need some conservative books in there too, ladies and gentlemen. That would be really nice to serve the community, since what people is conservative.
Thank you. That's your time. Jackie Cunningham.
Hi, my name's Jackie Cunningham, and I moved up here 8 years ago from the lower 48, came up here from Oklahoma, and we chose this area because it's a great community. Well, number one, too, you have nice golf courses up here, but it's a great community. It's a unique town because it's a small town environment with all, with big city resources, and it's gorgeous, and you're a tight-knit community, which is wonderful. And that's why we moved up here, like I said. And not only did my husband and I decide to retire up here, but my son and daughter-in-law, my daughter and son-in-law, and grandchildren. So I'm speaking on behalf as a parent and as a grandparent. And, the library today provides a variety of methods of learning, and they've provided so many unique features that our library provides. I mean, research for people to go and even learn how to research. And honestly, librarians are the smartest people I've met, to be quite honest. And if I walked into a library and I asked a librarian to help me learn how to research a certain topic, I would expect the highest quality service. Access to internet, club meetings, locations for students that are being homeschooled. There's a lot of students in our community that are being homeschooled, and it's a good resource for them. Students that need somewhere to go after school, even support in the summertime. Clubs, book clubs for adults. It's a wonderful place for something like that. And to me, it's just common sense that you go ahead and, you build a very nice facility. We're growing, as somebody also said, and this bond has already been approved by 80% of the community. It's not coming from property taxes. It's going to come from sales taxes. And the sales taxes, as people come in from the other areas outside the community, they're going to be spending their money here. And, if you build it, they will come, right? So it attracts people to our community. And what else can I say here? Let's not build a library that's already 10 years behind what our needs are. Let's build one for what we're going to need today, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. This should be a wonderful facility. It's already been approved, and there's other funds that are coming from the state. There's other funds that are coming from a grant. Friends of the Palmer Library is raising money. So let's go ahead and move forward with this, please. Because the time when we build it, how long is the time to build? What does it take to build a facility like this? A year, 2 years, something like that? We're already 2 years out from having it built. So let's move forward with this, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Rector.
How's it going?
All right. Please start with your name.
My name is Dave Rector. Thanks for being here and giving us time. I live in Palmer city limits. It seems like an important thing to say, given the topic. I sent an email to y'all today. No big deal if you haven't seen it. Just appreciate you reading it. So I thought about saying something different than I already said, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to kind of reiterate what I already typed out to y'all. I'm not originally from Palmer, but I'm here now. I'm married into a family. Love it here. I'm raising a family here. And I get that the job that y'all are doing is really hard to try to figure out what to do with the library stuff. But from my personal perspective, I think it's important to throw your weight behind the big 20,000-foot building. I think it's going to be an important resource for the community. For me specifically, I'm a parent of a 2-year-old girl. We're lucky enough that my wife has a good job and I can be a stay-at-home dad. Spent almost 20 years as an outdoor and environmental educator, and it means the world to me that I can stay home with my daughter and raise her. I want to spend part of that education for her in the homeschooling world, and I personally believe that success of homeschooling hinges upon high quality library resources at the public level. I also think that you all and we all want to support our public servants, and our library staff and volunteers are public servants. And someone mentioned third places. I did a sociological study for my master's degree where I studied third places and the way that they happen. And whether you like it or not, or I guess it's just going to happen, the library will become a third place, and no matter what. So these folks that are behind us that work and volunteer are going to end up having to be the stewards of that place and those people that gather there. I think it's important that we set them up for success in that way by giving them the best resources that we can. And lastly, the third point is that I really believe that y'all want this to be a success. That's why you do the job that you're doing, is to make sure that stuff like this happens and it happens well. And I understand that there has to be intention with this process, and I appreciate that. However, I think that the folks of the community have spoken, and I think it's a good time to move forward with that 20,000 square foot building. I've always wanted to say this. I yield the remainder of my time. So, thanks for doing what y'all do. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Lee Hendrickson.
Hello, my name is Lee Hendrickson. Thank you for listening to me. I have gone to 2 or 3 meetings at the depot about the library, what it's going to be, all those visioning things, what we want. Listen to Gary Wolf and his people talk about the balance between the size of the library and the cost of the library and what we need. And the 20,000 square feet and the $18 million or so cost was a good balance, he thought, for having a library that will suit us now and into the future. So to go back on all of that thinking and all of that work that we went into to come up with a 20,000 square foot building that includes a newer, bigger council chambers that can be used for story time as well as for council meetings. Maybe we should just shrink the council chamber then if we're going to make the building smaller. So think about what it is, all the resources that are going into that, and the resources for you to do your work better, the resources for the library to have a larger space for their gatherings, and the smaller spaces, I believe, with windows, so that the students won't be doing anything untoward in there because it's visible, and a space for books. It'll be a great space for all of us at that 20,000 square foot level. Thank you.
Thank you. Herb Bishop? Please start with the name so I know how to pronounce it next time.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Herb Bischoff. I live here in Palmer too. There's a couple of things I'd like to express. First of all, my appreciation to the council and to the city, and encourage you to address by acting on some of the recurring community input and concerns. First, thank you to the city, council members, for your support of the Arctic Winter Games. Our community showed its kindness, generosity, and hospitality, which led to a successful major international event. I hope the city and the council members will continue to actively support further efforts to showcase Palmer as a destination city of choice for other event organizers and for future return of the Arctic Games. I'd also like to thank the city and council members for addressing the various issues and concerns that come before you. Understanding, prioritizing, and acting on the many needs of the community is no easy task. Sometimes it seems few people give voice to the importance of addressing basic needs, things like safety and welfare, providing clean and adequate water, and assuring street, sidewalk, and infrastructure maintenance. That can be particularly challenging. It can be even more challenging when public input comes by way of loud rhetoric that's not representative of basic needs, finds no consensus within the Palmer community, and focuses on minority values not widely shared, sometimes my own views included. So thank you for your patience and for your tolerance. Along the line of basic needs, I ask you not only to continue to consider a few items that have been before you in the past, but take some action on those. Please take advantage of the opportunity to approve a library that can serve the community, all members of the community, for years to come. It's not a bad thing to plan for growth, even if it means a little more investment at the moment. Please act on the last study done concerning annexation. I couldn't find a report on that study or the findings, but as the population increases around us and our neighbors, including Gateway and Midtown, become more influential, Palmer will recede into the background if it cannot assert itself. Please focus on infrastructure and not wait until there's a major problem. Fix the roads and the railroad crossings that need it, particularly the one where the concrete's deteriorating and there's some new rebar sticking out in the road. Keep the water clean and adequate and available, and make sure support services can actually provide what they're intended to provide. Finally, to facilitate the development and livability of Palmer, I'd like to encourage the city and the council members to continue their active leadership, exemplified by the support of the Arctic Winter Games and by your addressing the needs and well-being of our community. While it's important to give voice to your constituents and their concerns, it's your voice and your actions that help define Palmer as a community that really is Alaska at its best. Furthermore, your active leadership will help move Palmer forward as the international showcase that it is, as was seen during the Arctic Winter Games. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Helen Woodings.
My name is Helen Woodings. I've lived here since 1953. That first year I lived 1 block north of here, and halfway between my house and where I'm sitting now was the Palmer Library. It was a chicken house with no outhouse. And then I taught school 1 year and moved then to Eklutna Project where my husband worked. And that's 28, that's 15 miles. We had 3 daughters. None of my 3 daughters had kindergarten because Palmer never had kindergarten during their years. But the library is where they met their friends at story hour and other library functions, and that would be in lieu of kindergarten. So we parents knew that the important thing for children was to have many experiences. On the new library, go big. We need meeting rooms, lots of meeting rooms, little meeting rooms, big meeting rooms. My Homemakers Club met at the Palmer Library for 20 years, and my Bird Club has met there. Now we meet at the Recycling Center. Let's see, where's my notes? Here we are. So, since Christmas of this year, I have visited 3 libraries: Sutton, Talkeetna, and Wasilla. Wasilla, wow, is that a building? I hope we can have one that beautiful again. At Sutton and Talkeetna, those buildings are the community center. The community uses the library for their many, many meetings. And they always have some inexpensive books or free books right at the door when you go out, if you didn't get there in time to check out a book. But the library is usually open when they have a meeting. Go big. Don't make it fancy. It will get paid for. I am glad that you chose Gary Wolf to the construction. They are local people. He's a good man. If you tell him, I want a big building with no frills, that's what he will build for you, and he knows how to do it. But we need it badly, and we need it soon. 2 of my grandsons, I only had 2. I had 3 grandchildren, 3 granddaughters, grew up at Chickaloon. So usually they had after-school sports, and if they didn't, or after-school sports, they were to meet their mom and dad at the Palmer Library.
I'm afraid that's your time.
And they knew that if they did their homework at the library, they would be able to watch TV that night with their parents. So they did that.
Thank you, Helen. That's all the time available. You'll have to come back.
Go big.
Maureen Campbell.
My name's Maureen Campbell, and I'm here to advocate for a fully funded 20,000 square foot Palmer Public Library. Libraries are the heart of a community, and we have a wonderful community. We deserve a wonderful library. We deserve it soon. We've been waiting now since our roof collapsed for a new library. Not that we don't have the little one right now that we can use, but library they're a lifeline for many, many people. When I was a very small child, I could not wait to learn how to write my name, because when I could write my name, I could go and get myself a library card. And I will never forget being that 6-year-old first grader and going to the library and getting my first library card. And I have been an avid library user ever since, to the point where I ended up getting a master's degree in library and information studies, and I went on to be a librarian for 25 years. It became my career. And I would love to see a beautiful community library here in Palmer. And so I just want to say how central it is to everybody, to all the people, all the users, the young children, the preteens, the teens, the adults, all of us. We can use that library. And it's not just about books, it's also about the meeting facilities. As the president of the Valley Fine Arts Association, our association would meet there at our Palmer Public Library, at least. Well, we met every month for our meetings there, and many other organizations as well use those meeting rooms there. We deserve a good library here in this wonderful community, and I would like to say, please go big, build it, and build it as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, we've hit our 30 minutes, so I will close audience participation. And next we have Committee of the Whole. So we need a motion to go into Committee of the Whole to discuss ordinance number 24-002, and I would say invite Kimberly up just to help us
Mr. Mayor,
discuss it. Yes, ma'am. Want to take a quick break?
just a quick, 3-minute break.
Okay, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. Sorry, Kimberly. There. Oh, that's for this. All right, so we were looking for a motion to go into a committee of the whole to discuss ordinance number 24-002 and invite HR person Kimberly to come and help
So
us
moved.
with the discussion. So
So
that's a so moved?
Second.
There's a second. Okay. Is there any opposed? Okay, we'll say that it's done. So we're in the committee of the whole. For Title IV. This is a lot of stuff with this. I found myself, I needed to like, okay, get me the code on one side and get me all the changes on the other side. And I'm not sure I have a very thorough understanding of this, but Kimberly, do you have any suggestions or summary you want to start with or ideas?
Yes, thank you. Hello, Mayor and Council. So Title IV currently is 107 pages, and the portion that you received in your packet is only the changes. So when you're looking at this packet, there's a lot of context that's missing. So what I would suggest is, with your permission, I'll send you my Word document of Title IV with all the changes tracked, so you have an opportunity to actually go through and look at everything in its totality. And in the sake of brevity, it might be better, rather than going through each section of Title IV, if after you have an opportunity to review the whole document, send me any questions or any concerns that you have regarding that. I can address those in a more one-on-one basis, and then I can send you back a final copy when we're all done with it for your review and approval.
And with those questions, then you could ask your, I'd like to change this, what is the wording to use so we get it for a well-written motion to happen right. So I don't know, what does the council think of that as a, Councilman Best?
I'm in favor when we're talking about these large documents like this. I really appreciate that active participation within the alternatives. And then that's presented to council, and then that's all those alternatives are then presented to the general public. So I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You anticipated I had some questions. So, with these changes, I'm assuming that a lot of these changes are kind of recommendations that came from through Title IV. But are we going to have an opportunity for the city attorney to look at some of those just to make sure that we're well within the legal?
Sarah's already reviewed them, concurred
Beautiful.
on all the edits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. To go along with Mr. Best, my comment though is I hope that we're not opening the door to for us to request changes, but as opposed to just request, clarification of what the changes are, not to go in and say, hey, I want this paragraph changed, and then just to get to the HR and say, hey, can you tell me why or what?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. This is an unusual enough topic for me to, I don't see a problem with email, we could each email her questions to understand what's going on. And then we'll bring it back in a meeting or two. I'd say 2 meetings, because we're meeting again next week, aren't we? Yes. So, okay, Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Kimberly, for being here. So you just mentioned 107 pages, and what's in front of us is about 82. So did you kind of crystallize it down a little bit for us so we wouldn't have to look at 107 pages, or is there still more out there that isn't presented in this document?
So the Word revision document is probably about 127, but once we're through with Title IV, we'll be about 80. So unfortunately, there's a little bit more reading, but I promise it's going to end soon.
Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to go back and discuss kind of the questions aspect of it, the way that I understand how this would work, if you and I and John potentially all had questions about the same one, each one would be hidden from each other, and then it would be presented as 3 options for us to go forward to, and then we could then choose an option, or maybe we might see that there's some commonality within some of the requests that we might add as we kind of went through the process. So it's an open, active revision process, as I understand it.
Correct.
Oh, Madam Attorney, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, although I think Councilmember Best addressed that, just clarify that nobody accidentally do a reply all or anything like that, just so everyone is aware. They'll be individually responding on a question basis only. If you have draft changes you'd like to do, that's part of the public process.
And I could see us coming back in a couple meetings and having maybe a committee of the whole again, I don't know, to see how we need to work through any issues. Councilman Tudor.
Thanks, Randy. So just to kind of confirm, so we're not going to email any kind of changes. We're just going to email questions. But if we have see any changes that should be made, that's going to come up to a later meeting. Just to get that out there. Just want to make sure.
Right. It needs to come to the meeting, to the council meeting. And I know it'd be a little more painful. Maybe you could individually email us this document. So if we happen to hit reply all, it's not going to everybody.
Yes, sir, I can.
Just help us in that case. Councilman Best.
Yeah, thank you. And even if one was to suggest a change, nothing would be codified until this body votes anyhow. So I want to make sure that we're not thinking that a suggestion of a change or a question is, it's all going to be the same from the perspective of us doing our due diligence in this document. I like to see that we're going through this, that it's such a large document, but we also all have to be very conscious and diligent about the open meetings aspect as well. And I know that everybody is very conscious about that. So, but I appreciate everybody kind of making sure that we're reiterating and reminding everybody about the emailing and whatnot. So.
The attorney still wants the last word. Yes.
Yeah, well, just, I think procedurally, if I may, just for all clarification, if you respond or in a phone call or a question to the HR director individually for clarification, if you have suggestions, just please note paragraph number, item number, page, and just create your own data as suggestions that you could then individually bring up and address if it is on the committee of the whole instead of giving it to her. Because at this point, her and I have worked in terms of the legality, so we don't want to make any appearance that an individual's lobbying an administrative issue or something to that effect. So just questions only, and then make your own suggestions on a separate page, and then maybe bring it to a meeting, and then you can all debate the suggestions and improvements.
And I know some of these need to happen sooner rather than later, but there's not any urgency to it if we wait a couple meetings.
No, there's no urgency. Title IV is in compliance with federal and state law, and where there's a differentiation, for example, in Title IV it talks about USERRA. It does not properly reference Alaska state law, which provides more options. So we know that, we're already addressing it, we're already handling it appropriately. So there's nothing urgent that needs to be taken care of.
Okay. Councilman Cooper.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to go back to, I think that our job is, we already have experts looking at this who know what they're doing. I don't think it's up to us to make the changes. My goal is to go in and ask, for example, why. So I look at a paragraph that's been deleted and I look at the one that has been substituted and it's exactly the same. No word difference at all. And so my question to the HR director would be, why are you eliminating one and adding the other? As opposed to, I don't like that word, I want you to change it to X. The experts have already looked at this, so I would hope we would look at this document and just ask the questions, why is this one deleted and substituted with another? Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? We'll come out of the committee of the whole, and I'm basically guess we'll postpone whatever the second meeting in April is. For those listening, we have another meeting next on the 2nd to interview city manager finalists. So I don't want to overload our poor little brains. Okay, so we'll go ahead and come out of committee of the whole. And looking for a motion to postpone till, what was the date? 20.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move to postpone to the second meeting in April.
Second.
That's clear enough? Okay. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Moline,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, unanimous. All right. Next is council member comments. Councilwoman Moline, since I don't want to forget you.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. As I've said many times, I think that the public process is key to what we do here. It's incredibly important for us to not only hear from the community at the dais, but also with the plethora of emails. I've received many phone calls, and this is a very passionate subject about this library, and I don't think there's one person that doesn't want a library. And I think that's really important to remember here when we're all trying to negotiate fiscal responsibility, which is our desire, is to be responsible, because that's what we are for the taxpayers' money. So I think that sometimes what happens is that we have, and it's not just the library, it's with anything. We're seeing that a lot of non-governmental organizations, and we refer to them as NGOs, are having incredible influence, and they basically are kind of, for lack of a better term, is we're abdicating responsibility to those NGOs, and the next thing you know, we have programs, and we have multiple programs that we didn't ask for in doing a library. But at the same time, I also think that it's a great thing that we have multiple programs at a library. But my heart and my passion behind the library, because I love the library, is just that this is a tough decision. This is a very tough decision that could ultimately end up, regardless of what anybody says or thinks, it could end up costing the taxpayers, because things change. We know this as a body. We deal with this all the time. We constantly have things that are brought back before us that increase the cost of what was meant to be an original initiative, then comes before us with more, asking for more money. So this is a tough decision, and I don't look at it lightly. But I just hope that is taken into consideration when you're thinking about what it is that we're going through with listening to people who are for a big library and people who just aren't. And so it's a struggle, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Councilman Tudor, council comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also just want to start by saying how much I appreciate your mayor's reports. It really does help keep what can oftentimes be like kind of this nebulous thing of our agendas, and makes it a lot easier to understand and helps people to be more informed and involved. And thank you to everyone who came out. As Councilwoman Moline was saying, we've gotten a lot of emails and taken a lot of public comments about the library, for both for having the full building and the opposite of you as well. And it's so helpful to us to have those viewpoints because it is a difficult decision, because it is a question of weighing the fiscal responsibility with making sure that we meet the needs of our growing community. We had an excellent Chamber of Commerce dinner the other last Saturday. Councilman Best joined me at that. It was a great event that raised a lot of money for their Palmer Food Bank. It was a wonderful event, and I'm definitely looking forward to see what happens with the State Attorney General regarding those books. That's going to really do a good job to help us just understand more about what we're dealing with here. Thank you.
Councilman Alcantra.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of echo what previous council members have said, but kind of want to point out that you can learn from your past mistakes. And about a year ago, little less, I was, as a fiscal conservative, I tried to cap the ballot proposition to only $8 million instead of $10 million. I was the only vote, when one person wasn't on council, but the only vote to do that. And then I joined 80% of Palmer residents to vote for the $10 million proposal. We've talked about $5 million from the state, $3 million from insurance, about an $18 million library. I think what I learned from a lot of emails, what I learned tonight, especially listening to Helen, is that go big is a better idea. A year ago, I wanted to go smaller. I was like, hey, let's not go 10 million. That's too much to ask for the folks. But, I've lived in Palmer and outskirts basically my entire life. And my mother, Patricia Alcantara, has been here since 1947 and just had her 94th birthday last night. I know if she could be ambulatory enough to be here, she would echo what Helen's told us. So I'll be looking to hopefully move this process down the road and let's have Palmer do something spectacular. We're tired of Palmer. I don't want to play second fiddle to Wasilla, and I don't want to play second fiddle to anybody. If we're going to live our motto of Alaska at its best, let's have a legacy library that drives that, and let's not winnow things down and make things less than what we should. And so I hope if nothing else, what I learned from many emails and what I learned from many testifiers tonight is go big. Thank you.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing for the good of the order.
Councilman Best.
Well, you said that right. That was tongue in cheek. So, I'd like to encourage those that are listening and in the audience still that are friends of the library. When we have discussed the library over the last 15 years at least, that was back in the day when the borough would actually give us funding. It was like $300,000. If the mayor would correct me if my memory is off. I think it was probably around that amount each year annually.
Good old every year after a while.
And then they put us on a downward slope to get us to zero, and it was because we had documentation from the librarians. We had all the history of how many of our patrons were from out of service area, out of our city limits. And it's been brought up a couple of times by myself in particular, that a library service area, much like road service area or fire service area, is something that could be applied. And because right now, the borough is collecting a tax that is going for library services. Well, we have people in the Butte that are paying that tax, and it's going to Sutton, it's going to Houston, it's going to, the other libraries that are out of city limits. It's not going to Wasilla, it's not going to Palmer. So if I could reach those friends of the library and say, this is where grassroots movement might need to come in and get involved to have that library service area applied over the top of the borough. It would be a vote of the people, go to the voters, and it would basically hamstring the assembly from spending that money elsewhere, and it would go directly to that library service board to then get funded directly to the Palmer Library or the Wasilla Library. And so I want to plant that seed, encourage them to engage and to be advocates in that aspect of understanding where your library dollars are currently going and help try to put them in their appropriate location. That might help us kind of go down this path as we're trying to help support our library. And, I've been on record of saying, on one hand, maybe we just demolish the library and we offer up our property to the borough and say, if you want to build a borough library, maybe our skin in the game is the property. And I think that's an extreme aspect of it, but the idea to have that conversation, get it out there, because I'm also a fan of the currently designed library. I think artistically, I went to school for architectural design. I can see where it harkens back to some of the design aspects of our older structures. It also is newer. It also has more light being added into it. If you look at our existing library that was, is in its current condition, it was a pillbox. It was a bunker. It was something that wasn't artistically pleasing. So when we're getting kind of hammered on that it doesn't fit in the venue of Palmer, it was. The old one wasn't really. It looked like a police station or something very industrial, and so I'm not a fan of that. But I'm also hearing from a lot of our constituency that are saying, you know what, it's too big, and I hear that too. I hear that maybe we should keep it in the $12 million range instead of the $18 million range. Now, there's some arguments to that as well, because you know what? If we send it back for redesign, now we're going to kick it back another season. And then you look at the cost effectiveness of materials and all that kind of stuff, and what that's going to cause you in your project. It could go up another 15 to 20%. So if we hold it back a year, do we actually lose that price per foot value that we're getting right now? So I'm really torn in the direction that we go. I wasn't also a fan of having council chambers, and we kind of went past that idea of that those are really meeting rooms. It's not really council chambers that are in the design, because if we were to have council chambers, my thought is that we would be splitting two locations for our clerk to have to then maintain this space and have to maintain that space, and her office is here. That's why I had suggested that we maybe move the clerk's office into that space as well. So, but that idea was squashed, and so we're already past that. I think we're already also past the idea of a coffee shop being involved in it, and so it's more open storage area, open use areas, all this kind of stuff. So I know that it hasn't been finalized yet, but I think we still need to have some serious discussions of, okay, in this process, are we going to have a gate? We're going to say, you know what, we're going forward with it at the value and the design that is before us, and we go forward, or are we going to pull it back and say, you know what, we're going to send it back to the drawing board, we're going to pull it back to a $10 or $12 million library and keep it at the same kind of square footage that we had before. I think those are important community discussions that still need to be had in the near future, coming up quickly. Secondly, I'd like to ask for council support on authorizing the attorney to research intergovernmental agreements and responsibilities pertaining to policing authorities and MOUs. And this has to do with, there's some entities that are starting to grow in some of their policing authorities, and they're starting to sign some agreements, and that might have some impact with the city. I know that the DC has authorized some other government entities to have more policing powers, and so I'd like to ask to have the attorney research that information, but I think the direction needed to come from this body to ask the attorney to go towards gaining that knowledge, and then she'll be able to present it back to us at a later date.
I second that.
So, Madam Attorney, do you have a little bit of clarity on that?
A little bit.
To at least come back with an initial report?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I can talk about jurisdictional powers. Councilmember Best asked me some specifics, and I was like, honestly, I don't know. There's been some new federal items that have been released, and I haven't seen them yet. So what immediately comes to mind that is a jurisdictional issue, how that interacts with state designated authorities. He's nodding. Due process, and then I'll reach out to the Alaska Police Standards Board and find out how those pieces are working together too.
Okay.
And thank you. And lastly, I appreciated Josh reminding me about the councilman about the city of Palmer's table at the Chamber of Commerce, and that was well attended. A lot of fundraising for some food bank issues going on. There was some good time. Also was able to enjoy over the week prior was the Arctic Winter Games, and I would like to say on record that I really thought it was well attended. The enthusiasm was wonderful. The conversations that was had with lots of folks from different communities, different countries, and again, like I stated at the last meeting, that that indoor kind of soccer ball, I think that is a wonderful sport. Futsal, yeah. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like a lot has been said already. I think the rest of my council members did a great job at kind of summarizing the library issue. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I guess if there's one thing I've learned so far being on the city council is you can't make everybody happy. And if there's another thing I've learned, it's that unfortunately with government things take a lot of time. I don't think any of us here want this library to take, 2 more years to get built. And as far as I know, this is the first part of that process that we've held back a little bit, and I think hopefully the citizens of Palmer and everybody who frequents the library can understand why. It's obviously a very critical and weighty issue, and it affects a lot of people. I didn't realize how much the meeting spaces were used at the library. That was news to me, so thank you for sharing that information. I love libraries. I've been going to libraries since I was a kid, just like a lot of the people we had speaking today. And it's great to hear that, and I think, again, all of us up here would love to have a huge grand library, and like Councilmember Alcantara said, something grand and spectacular, like better than Wasilla, better than Anchorage. And personally, the reason I'm not in favor of the current library plan that we have is not because it's too big. I would love if we could be very budget conscious about it, but I also see the need to build for the future and not for, not build something that'll need to be expanded in 5 years. And I was talking with a constituent earlier at the meeting who was saying, sometimes pinching pennies isn't wise in the long run. So I can see the wisdom in that. But personally, Councilmember Best was talking about the coffee shop. We had a lot of people that were not in favor of that, and then personally, I also was not in favor of having the council meeting rooms at the library for similar reasons to Councilmember Best. But also just because, and I guess in contrast to Councilmember Best, I do think that if we want to do something different and spectacular for the library for Palmer, I just, the feel of the library, the feel of the architecture just did not seem inviting. It didn't seem like Palmer to me, and I know they put so much hard work into that design, and that would be great for Anchorage, that would be great for Wasilla, but Palmer, I think we have a skyline, we have a just a very community and warm and inviting feel, and I would just love to see that reflected in the architecture of the new library and in the just the approach and just driving. I can't remember who said, when you drive into Palmer, you see it, it's right there, and I want it to be something that really just reflects the city of Palmer, Alaska at its best, and the community and the outdoor, the history. I would love to see that. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like or if it'll be something I'm happy with, but trying to be a voice for the people when everyone has differing ideas is difficult. So I'm sure we'll end up with a great library, and I think we're on the right track, and it'll just unfortunately take a lot more time than any of us want. So also happy Easter. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and good night.
I actually have a few comments. I was actually speaking to one of the participants from at a futsal game, and it was just interesting to hear his perspective because he's gone to a lot of these, and he really enjoyed Mat-Su as being really friendly, really and sharp contrast to some of the prior locations I guess they've had the game. So I was impressed. Thanks for the kudos in the mayor's report. I spent a lot of time with the clerk trying to figure out, okay, what's coming up on what agenda. So I try to use all that knowledge in my head to try to write it down. And I forgot, I've actually got an invite. The museum wanted to come and do a report here in the next month, which is part of what they're supposed to do. Another thing is audience participation. I've talked about with others about changing it to one audience participation. Now I'm wondering about there might be wisdom with 2 audience participations with a 30-minute limit. Kind of spaces it out throughout the meeting. I'll just figure I'll make that a comment, and if you have any ideas on that, get back to me. I don't know. It would take code changes, to change any of that. And then lastly, I was just going to mention in the last month, I've been involved with speaking with 4 different organizations for getting funds for the library, and I've only gotten 1 no out of the 4. And so there's, I'm not going to say who or even how much because I don't want to jeopardize what we have going, but there's, that's at least some millions in that, at least a few million in there. And I think we're done. We're adjourned. 8:59. Barely.